Let's talk about one of the most counterintuitive ideas in all of finance. We're going to dig into what actually happens to your money during a major war, and why the smartest move you can make, well, it often feels like the absolute most wrong one.
So picture it, World War III starts tomorrow. The news breaks, your phone is just blowing up with alerts. What's your first move? For most of us, that first gut instinct isn't to call our family. It's to open our brokerage app. And that's what financial anxiety does, right? It just hijacks our primal instincts and points them straight at our portfolio, which, in the grand scheme of things, is probably the one thing that needs our attention the least.
So, to really see how this plays out, let's follow two people. We're going to call them Mark and Sarah. They've got the exact same portfolio, they see the same crazy news alerts, but on that morning, they make two totally different choices. Mark, he sells everything. Sarah, she just goes to work.
Okay, let's start with Mark's choice, because it's driven by this really powerful force that we all carry around with us, panic in our pockets. So here's what actually happened to Mark on the morning of the February 2022 invasion of Ukraine. He had about 40 grand in index funds. He was completely glued to financial news for 3 straight hours. He probably saw the word crisis like 50 times. And by the time the market opened at 9 a.m., he had sold every single share. And you know what? He felt good. He felt proactive, he felt smart. But here's the thing, what Mark didn't realize is that he was playing right into the hands of something we can call the fear industrial complex. And this quote just nails it. This isn't some vague conspiracy theory, it's a straight-up business model. See, every time there's a huge geopolitical crisis, what happens? Viewership spikes, ad revenue goes through the roof, engagement skyrockets. The more scared you are, the longer you watch. Your panic is, quite literally, their product.
And you can see exactly how this works. A 2% market drop is, just a Tuesday. But an alarming headline like, "Markets in free fall," that gets the clicks, that drives the ad revenue. A more measured, nuanced analysis like, "Moderate pullback consistent with historical patterns," well, that doesn't get ratings, does it? The whole ecosystem is basically designed to manufacture a sense of urgency.
But here's the data that just completely contradicts that urgency. Markets don't actually die in wars. They dip, sure. They panic for a little bit, but then, almost without a single exception in history, they climb. The Dow Jones gained 50% during World War II. 50%. Why? Because, economically speaking, wars are the most aggressive government stimulus programs ever. The government becomes the world's biggest customer overnight, and all that money flows directly into publicly traded companies.
Okay, so if the data is so clear, why do so many people, like Mark, sell? Well, it all comes down to the psychological and financial costs of waiting for what feels like clarity.
And this is the trap. See, panic selling doesn't feel like an emotional mistake. It feels like a moment of pure, rational insight. The market's falling, the news is terrible, selling feels like the only logical thing to do. So you hit the button and you feel this wave of relief. You think, okay, I've taken action, I'm safe.
But that relief? It comes at a really steep price. According to JP Morgan, if you had invested $10,000 in the S&P 500 between 2005 and 2024, it would have grown to $71,000 if you just left it alone.
But what if you missed just the 10 best trading days in that entire 19-year stretch? Your final amount plummets by more than half, down to just 32 grand. And here's the crazy reason why. The crash and the recovery are practically the same event. Get this, 7 of those 10 best days happen within just 2 weeks of the 10 worst days. So if you sell during the panic, you are almost guaranteed to miss the recovery. By the time it finally feels safe to get back in, all the biggest gains are already gone.
Okay, so let's flip this around and talk about the solution. This is Sarah's strategy. She's not reacting in the moment. Instead, she's relying on a pre-built, counterintuitive war chest. So Sarah's framework is this structured 6-step plan. And the order here is really critical, because each step builds on the last one. You start with the most defensive stuff to create a kind of psychological safety net. And then you layer on these tactical positions that can actually do really well during a crisis. So let's walk through it.
Step 1 is the cash floor. Before you even think about investing, you need 6 to 12 months of living expenses set aside. And, crucially, a piece of that, a few $1,000s, should be in physical cash. This isn't about being a paranoid prepper, it's a practical hedge. Remember when Russia was cut off from the SWIFT payment system? Russian citizens woke up and their ATMs just didn't work. Cyber warfare always targets payment systems first. All right, now for a really critical warning. That classic safe haven asset you always hear about, U.S. government bonds, can be a total trap. During World War II, they lost 67% of their real value because of inflation. The real solution is inflation-protected securities, things like TIPS or Series I bonds. These are special government bonds where the amount you get back is legally required to go up with inflation. It protects your actual spending power.
Now we get to the tactical part of the portfolio, and this is where you can get both stability and some real upside. You've got defense stocks, which outperformed the S&P by 28 points in 2022. You've got energy, which soared 64% that same year. Then you've got consumer staples, because, people always need toothpaste, and a strategic slice for gold is that classic flight to safety asset.
But the single most important rule of all is this. Your core, broad market index funds are untouchable. You do not sell them. In fact, you keep contributing to them. Data from the CFA Institute shows that large-cap stocks historically returned more during wartime than they did during peacetime, and with lower volatility. Think about that. So, let's close the loop. Let's go back to our two investors and see the final, pretty staggering result of the choices they made.
Okay, here are the numbers. Mark sold his $40,000, he sat in cash for 4 months, he paid capital gains tax, and by the time he finally felt safe enough to get back in, his portfolio was worth about $48,000. Sarah, on the other hand, held her $40,000, she kept her automatic contributions running, and she added those tactical positions. Her portfolio? It grew to roughly $91,000. Same starting point, but a $43,000 difference.
And here is the essential lesson. Sarah didn't win because she was some stock-picking genius. She won because she had a system, a plan that allowed her to buy high-quality assets at a discount when everyone else was panicking. To put it simply, she bought the fear that Mark paid for.
Ultimately, it comes down to this. The person without a plan is going to open their brokerage app and sell. The person with a plan, they're going to check the structure they already built, put their phone down, and go make coffee. We know another